Gideon Brooks stood at the top of the lighthouse, his gaze scanning the tumultuous sea below. The wind whipped through his hair and tugged at his weather-beaten coat, but he remained unmoved. The lighthouse, a solitary sentinel on the rocky outcrop, had been his home for nearly 2 decades. Its beam cut through the dense fog, guiding ships safely away from the perilous rocks. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Gideon's thoughts were interrupted by the distant chug of a boat. A small dinghy, bobbing in the waves, was making its way towards the island. He frowned. Visitors were rare, and the few who did come were often fishermen or local officials. This vessel, however, did not match the usual profile. It was sleek and modern, unlike the rusty old boats that typically frequented the island. Curiosity piqued. Gideon descended the spiral staircase of the lighthouse, his heavy boots echoing against the cold stone walls. He reached the rocky shore just as the dinghy landed. Out stepped Claire Donovan, a young journalist with an aura of determination about her. Her blonde hair, tied back in a practical bun, gleamed in the fading sunlight. She looked around, taking in the stark beauty of the island and the imposing lighthouse. "Can I help you?" Gideon's voice was gruff, betraying his surprise. Claire smiled warmly, though her eyes revealed a flicker of apprehension. "I'm Claire Donovan. I've come to investigate the recent shipwrecks and the mysterious disappearances linked to this lighthouse." Gideon's eyes narrowed. The lighthouse hasn't caused any wrecks. It's been guiding ships safely for years. Claire's smile didn't waver. "I've heard stories about the Lighthouse Keeper's curse and strange occurrences. I want to find out the truth." Gideon sighed. "The stories are just that, stories. But if you're set on it, you might as well come up to the lighthouse. It's not safe out here after dark." As they climbed the steep path to the lighthouse, Claire marveled at the structure. It stood tall and proud, its white paint weathered but still resilient against the elements. Inside, the lighthouse was a maze of metal and stone, with a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever. Gideon led Claire to the living quarters, a modest space furnished with essentials: a bed, a small kitchen, and an old wooden table cluttered with maps and nautical charts. The walls were lined with photographs of past ships and their crews, a testament to Gideon's solitary watch over the seas. "Make yourself comfortable," Gideon said gruffly. "I'll fetch some tea." Claire took a seat by the window, her eyes drifting over the stormy sea. The weather was deteriorating rapidly, the sky darkening as clouds gathered ominously. Gideon returned with 2 mugs of steaming tea and set them down on the table. "Tell me what you know," he said, settling into a chair opposite Claire. Claire took a sip of her tea, then began recounting her research. "There have been several shipwrecks in this area over the past few decades. The official reports attribute them to rough seas and navigational errors, but there are rumors of something more sinister." Gideon listened intently, his face expressionless. "And you think this lighthouse is involved?" "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But the Lighthouse Keeper's curse, the strange disappearances, it all points to something unusual. I need to understand what really happened." Gideon studied her for a moment. "You're not the first to come looking for answers. Others have come and gone, but none have found what they were looking for." Claire's eyes met his, and she saw a flicker of sadness there. "Why do you stay here if you believe the stories are false?" Gideon's gaze shifted to the lighthouse's beam as it cut through the encroaching darkness. "It's my duty. And perhaps there's something I'm waiting for." The conversation was interrupted by a loud crack of thunder. The storm had arrived, and the lighthouse's beam became even more vital. Claire and Gideon spent the evening discussing the lighthouse's history, Claire's notes, and the strange events that had occurred over the years. As the night wore on, a bond began to form between them, a connection born from shared curiosity and mutual respect. The following morning, the storm had passed, but the sea remained turbulent. Claire and Gideon continued their investigation, exploring the lighthouse and its surroundings. They discovered hidden compartments and old logs, revealing glimpses into the lighthouse's past. Each clue they found seemed to deepen the mystery, but also brought them closer together. As days turned into weeks, Claire's presence on the island became a welcome change for Gideon. He began to open up about his past, his life before the lighthouse, and the reasons behind his solitary existence. Claire, in turn, shared her own stories and aspirations. The lighthouse, once a symbol of isolation for Gideon, now became a place of connection and discovery. One evening, as they stood together on the lighthouse's balcony, watching the sun set over the sea, Claire took Gideon's hand. "I'm glad I came here," she said softly. "Not just for the investigation, but for the chance to get to know you." Gideon looked at her, his eyes softening. "I'm glad too, Claire. You've brought something to this place that I didn't realize I was missing." Their relationship grew deeper, their affection for each other blossoming amidst the backdrop of the lighthouse's beam and the endless sea. As they worked together, they uncovered the truth behind the shipwrecks and the lighthouse keeper's curse, a truth that was both surprising and poignant. The lighthouse had indeed played a role in the shipwrecks, but not in the way the rumors suggested. The real story was one of miscommunication and unfortunate accidents, exacerbated by the lighthouse's own difficulties and the treacherous conditions of the sea. With the mystery solved and the curse dispelled, Claire prepared to return to her journalistic duties. Gideon, however, faced a choice. The lighthouse had been his home for so long, but now he had a chance to explore a new life with Claire. As Claire boarded the boat that would take her back to the mainland, Gideon stood on the shore, his heart heavy with the weight of their impending separation. Claire turned to him, her eyes filled with both sadness and hope. "I'll be back," she promised. "We'll figure out what comes next together." Gideon nodded, his heart swelling with a mixture of longing and anticipation. "I'll be waiting," he said, his voice steady. As the boat departed, Gideon watched Claire disappear into the distance, his heart full of both gratitude and excitement for the future. The lighthouse, once a symbol of isolation, now stood as a beacon of hope and new beginnings. And as the beam of the lighthouse cut through the night, Gideon knew that his life had changed forever. The promise he had made to Claire was not just about waiting for her return, but about embracing the possibilities that lay ahead, a future filled with love, discovery, and the enduring light of the lighthouse.